Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sasha Farbach. Russia and Belarus are set to stage their Zapad 2025 drills near NATO's borders, set to take place between September 12th and the 16th. Now, Poland, with its allies, is answering with exercises of its own, utilizing thousands of troops. We're now joined by Ján Michalčák, former head of unit for countering hybrid threats in the Czech Defense Ministry. Good to have you back on TVP World. Welcome.
Good to be back. Good morning.
Ján, these exercises, Zapad 2025, these happen every year. Now, NATO has warned that there would be somewhere around 35,000 Russian and Belarusian troops. Moscow said there will be less. So why the discrepancy, and how worried should we be that this is happening right on NATO's doorstep?
That's a great question. Zapad has traditionally been one of the biggest, if not the biggest, military exercise that Russia and now, in connection with Belarus, organizes quite regularly. Although the frequency of the regularity has dropped now since the onset of the full-scale invasion by Russia into Ukraine, because, quite logically, and that's also where the discrepancies come from, Russia has lost or tied most of its troops in actual fighting in Ukraine, which also means that it, unfortunately for them, fortunately for the rest of us, doesn't have as much technology, as much equipment to show off as they would probably like to. Not to mention that a lot of the soldiers that would have otherwise attended the exercise have died in Putin's futile war against Ukraine.
All right. So, as you said, it's smaller because of the losses. Nevertheless, it's still worrying, so close to NATO's borders. We've had so many also air incursions as well from Belarus in recent weeks. So that's going to be concerning. There's a nuclear dimension this time around. I don't know if that's happened before. It might be the first time on the Belarus side they've confirmed that. What does that signal to the West, and how worried should we be that that's included this time around?
And even the nuclear dimension and the rest and the whole exercise in general is there mainly to signal to the West that Russia and Belarus as well are forces to be reckoned with, that they are still strong, and of course they would like us to believe that they are as strong as to be able to attack NATO should they wish to do so. And the nuclear dimension has traditionally served as a massive deterrent, not only in the Russian army. And if you read the military doctrines of Russia that have been publicly available, you will find that the nuclear doctrine is there to serve as a protection of the regime. So should there hypothetically be an open war against Russia itself, it reserves the right to use the nuclear deterrent, or the nuclear part of its forces, to save the regime should it deem that it's close to collapse. Now, of course, nothing of that kind is happening and is likely to happen, because no one wishes to wage a war against Russia, but it's part of the Kremlin propaganda to make us all and the friends of the Russian regime believe that it is already waging a proxy war against NATO. And, as part of that narrative, it's logical for them to remind us of the nuclear deterrent and of their right to protect the regime should it be endangered, which it's not, but it's part of the propaganda.
Mm-hmm. All right. And as you said, it's all a show of force here. At the same time, NATO is also, let's say, answering its own call, its own show of force. 40,000 NATO troops, also very much arranged with the Baltic states, Poland. 40,000, that's a large number. Technically, that's larger than all Zapad exercises put together on the Russian-Belarusian side. Putting all these troops in close proximity, how dangerous is that? I mean, is this typical deterrence, or is this different than it has been in the past?
As for the Polish exercise, if I'm not mistaken, it's actually the biggest military exercise that the Polish army has put together in a long time in connection with the Allies, and that's a good sign for us, because the Polish army has been the strongest continental army for a long time now. It's been rearming at a record pace, so it's great to see that Poland has been ready to act as a buffer against Russia. But for your question, I don't really think there's any imminent danger from the two exercises happening close to each other because, yes, Russia is the aggressor, but still the leadership of the respective armies involved in the exercise are not stupid, and obviously they will want to do whatever it takes to avoid any potential involvement of the armies. That also means that the fact that the exercises are happening have been notified duly, as is standard, to the other side. And that's exactly because they want to avoid any sort of misunderstanding that could lead to an unnecessary declaration. So, Russia has broken every sort of international law imaginable in the last 3 years, but it still keeps to the rules in the sense of, yes, we really want to desperately avoid any conflagration with NATO, and that's why they notified us that their exercise is happening, and the same was done by the Polish army to the Russians.
Nevertheless, as we look at history, it was another Zapad exercise, right, in 2021 that led to that buildup, which then eventually led to that invasion of Ukraine. So I think it will still have policymakers in some circles, at least, not concerned, but for sure cautious. I want to ask you a couple more things. One is, we talked about Poland there. There's a Suwałki Gap considered by some, actually this former British intelligence officer, Philip Ingram, said to the British press that this is the Achilles heel of NATO. What about this corridor? It's 104 kilometers. Has this changed? How do you assess that vulnerability here? And is he correct in that?
Obviously, yes. Just take a look at the map, and you will see that the representative that you cited is correct. It is a piece of territory, squished between Russia and Belarus. And as we know, Russia and Belarus are allies. Belarus is basically a puppet state of Russia. So should Russia decide to attack NATO, just judging by the geography, this piece of territory is and has been for a long time the weakest link in our NATO defense because, it would be enormously difficult to defend and then, easy for the Russians and the Belarusians to cut through and thereby connect their two territories. Then the question obviously is to what extent would we be willing to defend our territory? I am convinced that Article 5, the commitment to mutual defense, would hold. But yes, this is the testing ground, and Russia knows that. And that's also why in that particular region, we've seen increased activity of drones, occasional incursions by the Russian Air Force, no troop movements, luckily so far. But yes, Russia is testing our commitment to defense because that's the piece of territory. Should there be war against Russia, very likely that's the piece of territory where the war would start and where Russia would attack first.
Okay. Speaking of testing, just last one quickly at the end. In your expertise and about hybrid threats, disinformation, countering all that. The European Commission has warned that during these Zapad exercises, there would be also certain disinformation campaigns, hybrid threats likely from the Russians. What could ordinary citizens now watch out for? What should we be vigilant of in these next few days as this exercise happens?
Just as in any other time, we should be extremely vigilant about the sources that we rely on. If we see a piece of news that seems too good to be true, seems to be playing on our emotions, we should double check or even triple check where the information comes from, because it is no secret that disinformation sources all across the EU have been increasingly using Russian propaganda from Russia itself, sources that have been banned by the EU, but still are being used by disinformation sources that are, strictly speaking, domestic. And sometimes it's really difficult to recognize that the source of information is not really trustworthy. So, use your critical thinking as much as possible. And if you're not sure if something seems too good to be true, take your time and really triple check the information before you believe it.
Right, and just a quick comment. One person repeating Kremlin talking points, Slovakia's Fico, saying that Russia also should have security guarantees. I mean, this is a strange one. What do you make of his, and how much damage is he doing by acknowledging that? Just briefly.
Yeah, Fico has been repeating Russia's propaganda for a long time now, and this just keeps the pattern because Russia needing security guarantees is exactly what the Kremlin has been saying ever since the war started. On the other hand, Fico's meeting with Zelensky has been more successful than we thought it would. So yes, success, but apparently he still cannot help himself and needs to repeat Kremlin propaganda, I think mainly for his domestic audiences.
Mm-hmm. But at the same time, as you said, this is something that puts him at odds with much other policies, and I think very difficult to square with that largest attack with Russian missiles, with Russian also attacks on Kiev and across Ukraine on Sunday, the most devastating aerial one. So it's going to be hard to square that.
Just one sentence, without the full-scale invasion, Russia would not need any security guarantees because no one was about to attack Russia before it itself decided to invade a sovereign country. So that's nonsense, and they know it.
Mm-hmm. Well, look, as ever, really interesting analysis there, giving us the latest on those exercises and more. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure there. Ján Michalčák, appreciate it.
Pleasure. Have a great day.
And thank you for watching World Talks, but stay tuned. Much more coming up right here on TVP World, so don't go away.